Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I am super excited to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Dr. Sonia Wright. Dr. Sonia is a sex coach for women in midlife, and she's here to share her dating after divorce story. Welcome, Dr. Sonia. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Sonia Wright. I go by Sonia or Dr. Sonia. I am the midlife sex coach for women, and I'm pretty excited to be here. I'm not sure what else you want to talk to me about, so just ask away.
Yeah. Like I'm so excited to hear your story. I know, like when we were talking at dinner, I didn't want to hear it all because I really wanted to experience it in real time with my clients. So I do have little bits and pieces, but let's start with your marriage, because you had a really unique relationship. I still have a really unique relationship with your ex, and I would just love to hear about how all of that played out.
Yeah, so I've actually been divorced twice. I think you're talking about my first marriage with my husband, Edward, at the time. Edward and I were college sweethearts, right? So I was 19, he was 21 when we started dating, and we were together for a very long time. We got married at age 26 and 28, and we had our son at 32 and 34. And then we drifted apart. We had different things in our lives, and we got to the place where it was better to have a divorce to preserve I know it sounds strange, but to have a divorce to preserve the family unit. I was not the person that I wanted to be in that relationship. I honestly was pretty bitchy and obnoxious in some ways, and that's not how I wanted to raise my son. I wanted a partnership, and I didn't like being that person either. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to preserve the friendship because we had basically grown up together, right? And so we got divorced at 40 and 42, but we made a commitment. Our son was relatively young, and so we made a commitment that we were going to raise him together and still remain friends, and we've stuck to that commitment. And actually, we just went to Disney World together to celebrate what would have been our 30th anniversary, and because we're still friends, right?
We managed to figure that out. Crazy. That is honestly, who does that?
But he's such a good person, right?
We're going to celebrate our not anniversary.
Well, we switched our marriage anniversary to our family anniversary. So we kind of changed the name of it, but and basically that became an important part of our lives together. And I wouldn't want to have raised my son with anybody else in terms of him, any other father. He's just a good person. And to this day, I'm very grateful for him, but we just didn't necessarily work out as a couple, but definitely as friends, we do work out.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about how certain relationships can be good, but not good when you adding certain things to it? And I love that, because I don't even know that I necessarily have the word for it. I think of it as, don't give people something that isn't right for them or that they can't handle. I've thought of it more in terms of my children, my teenagers, where right now you can't handle your phone. You're causing a lot of chaos with your phone. It's not that I don't want you to have one, but I'm taking it because we're creating a tornado with this phone right now. So you're not handling it. And and I think it's a new concept, or not a new concept, a strange concept, where it's he's a good person, I'm a good person.
Yes.
But together we did not work. The pieces just didn't fit. Mm-hmm. And I think because marriage is this glorified as this end all and be all achievement, we don't think about those variables.
Yeah, but for me, it was so important to focus on the friendship and the relationship as opposed to conform with people's concepts and ideas of you stay in a marriage. If it's not working, why make the people miserable? And I definitely didn't want to make my son grow up in that environment, because I want him to know that relationships should be loving and affectionate. I was not loving and affectionate, and I definitely take the blame for, there's more. It wasn't, some people like to blame the other person. It's not, it's a combination. It's two people, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And there's always going to be a shift because people are growing and changing. And sometimes you grow and change together, and sometimes you grow and change apart. And so that can happen.
Yeah, Yeah, that's amazing. So that was your first relationship, still is, you still consider yourself a family unit, which that's just amazing. And I love that that exists in the world. I think it lets us all know what's possible.
Mhm.
You know, we always think that only one thing is possible, but like there's so many different types of families, but the core ingredients are always that love, that affection, that respect, boundaries, you know, within the human beings that are there. And then you were in another relationship that also ended in divorce.
Yeah, that one ended more recently, like 5 years ago, probably 6 years now. And so it's interesting that my first partner was a man, my second partner was a woman, and we had a number of good years, and then we had some not so good years. And then yeah, it came to the place where it was a better decision. And after that divorce, I was like, I am not doing this anymore. I'm good. I'm good. I'm just going to raise my children. I'm going to work. I'm a physician. I'm a pediatric radiologist. I'm going to focus on my career. I'm going to raise my children, and things are going to be fine. And then I got to this place where I was like, I think I'm more of a poly person. I knew I was pansexual, which is like you're more focused on the individual and not necessarily what gender they are. And so I came out as pansexual, which is something that was important to me. But I also came out as non-monogamous.
Okay.
And under that's kind of like an umbrella term, or consensual non-monogamy. And then under that term, there's a number of different terms. It can go anywhere from one night stand swinging all the way to relationship anarchy, where there's not one relationship have a higher hierarchy compared to another. And somewhere in there is polyamory. And I realized that I had this ability to love more than one person. And so for a number of years, I was what would be called solo poly, which is I have my home, I have my life, I'm not merging with another person. And but I will date you, and we will have a nice relationship. It's a loving, respectful relationship, but I don't necessarily what we call like this relationship escalator, where you date and then you get to a certain place and you move in together, and then you get to a certain place and then you have to get married. That was something that was not interesting to me at all. So I went for like the next 5 years dating and kind of in relationships with people, and raising my children and having my own home and doing that. And then to my shock, surprise, and amazement, I met people that actually wanted to have more of a more traditional type of relationship with. So that was kind of shocking to go from one perspective to another. And so it can change and grow, and relationships can differ.
Yeah. So while you were like I don't know the terms for it, but like when you realize, oh, I'm like poly and I want to like date, and I don't even want to use, you weren't necessarily dating multiple people. It's not the same thing as dating multiple people. You were in relationship with multiple people.
Yeah, and for me, you can be poly, and that can be identity, and you don't even necessarily have to be in a number of different relationships. It's just I have the ability to love more than one person and to be in more than one committed, loving relationship with or without sex. Poly does not necessarily mean people have a tendency to think non-monogamy means you're hopping into bed with 20 million people. It does not even have to be a sexual relationship. So people, it's just another way of being in terms of having more than one relationship, more than one loving relationship with people.
Yeah. Like we have that ability in so many other types of relationship. We have that ability with multiple children and multiple siblings. Exactly. And so,
and that's kind of how I explain it to people. It's like you love more than one child. You don't just have 3 children and only love one, right? You can have more than one partner, and you don't have to focus in on this person needs to meet all your needs and things like that. That's not about that. You get to enjoy their time and to be with them and who you are with them, and appreciate them without them needing to be more than that, right? You just appreciate who they are. And if there's something else that you need, that then you pursue a different relationship and develop that relationship as well.
Yeah, I love that because it's that attachment that I think often a lot of the work I do is teaching women how not to attach to. You go on a date with a person and he seems to be everything you want, and immediately the fantasy sets in, the attachment sets in, because it's like everything I want is in this person.
Well, see, that's the thing, because it is a fantasy. Like you're looking for everything you want and need in another individual instead of yourself. Like if you
Yes.
focus on finding what it is that you want to need and providing that for yourself, then you're not grabbing onto another person. Then it's more like, oh, I have an interaction with this person. I have a relationship with this person. I get to appreciate this person, not I need to do the happy ever after with this person so that I get all my needs met and I'm finally happy, right?
Mhm.
We don't come from that perspective.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone should.
Yeah, no, I don't, I agree. I don't think anybody should, but our society has a tendency to say that it could only be one partner. This partner has to
Mhm.
meet all your needs and this type of bullshit that causes more harm and sadness in the world than needs to be.
Yeah, yeah. And we've both been in Carla Lowenthal's feminist coaching certification. And one of the things that has done for me is to see whether something is an actual principle
Mhm.
or a narrative in society that was perpetuated for other reasons. Like now I'm in a monogamous relationship. I am like all traditional. I want the one person in the same house, all the things. However, I also know that a lot of the graspiness and the attachment that comes with monogamous relationships comes because of this sense of ownership, because marriage was an ownership transaction way back in our histories.
It was a way to assure that your children were only your children. Like if it comes down through the patrilineal lineage, then there has to be this graspiness. If it comes through the matrilinear lineage where the children belong to the mother's family, all of this crap goes away, actually. But that's another conversation that we can have here. But basically what it comes down to is that our women are told a number of things in terms of your happy ever after depends on you being a good person and being selfless and taking care of everybody else, and a long list of things that if we buy into it can limit ourselves. And I remember from a very young age, I remember being 8 years old and looking at the marriages that I saw, and I was like, this looks like it's a bad deal for women. I remember at 8 years old thinking, I don't think I want to do this way, right?
This
So I've
kind of
always been who
sucks.
I am, right? I was like,
Right?
so what exactly did you get again? let me talk this through.
Yeah, because I mean, and the ownership, and there were some cultures, many cultures, where women were owned by their husbands. They were owned by their fathers, by their parents. The sons were owned as well as labor for the family
Mhm.
until you went out and did your thing. But women were also owned. So they were owned by the dad, and it was a financial transaction for her to be quote unquote handed over
Mhm.
in exchange for a dowry from the husband. Or if the society went the other way, it's like, hey, she's gonna take her because she can't work my farm, and here's some money for you to pay for her upkeep while she just all of that craziness
Yeah.
that has come into. So that to me is like, I look at it as like, is there a sense of ownership? And marriages often have a sense of I own you, both from women owning their husbands and husbands owning their wives. And I think the healthiest relationships are where I don't own you, you don't own me, but we are here because like we're both amazing and we're creating something amazing together, and we continue to do that. And of course I want to stay. Of course I want to be here.
Yeah, and if you have that, it's a beautiful thing. It really can be a beautiful thing. So I'm in a newer relationship now, and this is where all the fun comes in, because when I was solo poly and I had all these things about no hierarchy, no primary, and all that stuff, and like all those principles have gone out of the window because I met this person that I really love and adore, and we are getting married in December. We're getting in the traditional sense,
Isn't that
of
amazing? What a
marriage and
journey.
merging families and everything like that, things that I didn't necessarily think were going to happen. And so, but I could just laugh. I can just laugh
Mhm.
at myself and be like, and you get to do this too, Sonia, and that's fine.
Yes, yes. I love that. Like it doesn't have to be this one thing and then you're locked in and
Right.
all of that. Love
Yeah.
it. So let's hear your dating story. Because like, I mean, obviously you were like, and I just, it sounds like dating would have been like super easy for you because you weren't attached. You weren't like looking for quote unquote a thing.
Yes. Actually, I had been in a relationship before, and it ended abruptly. The person I was with said they no longer wanted to be with me, and it broke my heart. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with this, And so then I met my current partner, and I was like, I am not looking and in fact, I insisted that we were not going to date. I said, I will be your friend. I even said I would be her wing woman. I was like, I will be your wing woman while you go out and date. I will be here and support you, and you can talk to me about any relationship and I will be 100% there for you. And she was like, we are going to date. And I said, no, we're not. And I gave the reasons why we're not, and I said, we will just be friends and things like that. And then, but I would be on the phone talking to her for 2 and 3 hours, right? So for somebody that I wasn't going to date, I was certainly spending a lot of time talking with her. So we developed a very good friendship. And when we were talking on the phone, and then we'd meet in person, and we'd, have a quote unquote date, I would not consider it a date. I'd be like, oh, I'm hanging with my friend. She considered it a date. And she said that once we started like going out to dinner and stuff like that, that she knew that we were going to be together. And I was just oblivious. And I was like, la, 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 and so our dating story, that's like the fun part of it, is like, I'm good not dating. And then I was like, okay, I did catch feelings for her, right? And so I was like, okay, I do like her. We will have an entanglement. That's when I went to the next stage. I was like, let's just have an entanglement, right? Yeah. So we'll just have a little fun, an entanglement, because like I'm not doing this dating thing and relationships, and I'm pretty good. So like and then she's like, no, we will not have an entanglement. We're going to have a relationship. So then we went through the entanglement phase. And then finally I was like, fine. We will be in a relationship. And she met my daughter. I have a 10-year-old and she has a 9-year-old. And my daughter was very quick to attach to her. And I was like, and my daughter was like, came to me at one point, was like, Mom, don't mess this up. I really like her.
Like, if you mess this up, I'm keeping her.
Exactly. That's basically what it was. My daughter was like, do not mess this up. No, this is not happening.
Sounds like your daughter knew you very well, or knows you very well.
and knows what she also wants. And the funny thing was, when I stopped dating, and I had been dating women, and then I broke up with that person before. And then I started dating men, and my daughter came to me and said, you need to date women again, and you need to find a woman that has a child around my age. And I was like, what?
Wow.
and it turned out that way, because my partner has a 9-year-old son. And so now we brought the two families together, and so we're getting married in December. So
your daughter sounds amazing. She's like, no men, Mom. Thank you.
She's like, women treat me better. They're like, they get me things. They get me more things, Mom.
That's awesome. So like, at what point did you know that she was the one? Like, because I know your one of the relationships that ended, was pretty hard for you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, potentially might have caused you to be like, have trust issues. And I don't know if they did or not. I'm just kind of framing the question, like, from someone who was like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not getting this close again. I'm not merging my life with someone else again. How did you know this person was safe?
Yeah. Well, when I decided that I would start dating her again, I was like, what if this is a very special person in your life and you're not giving yourself that opportunity because you're afraid of getting your heart broken? I'm like, what is the worst thing that could happen? You could get your heart broken. Okay, maybe you could, but you've already gotten it broken. You know what it feels like. It's painful, and you process it, and you get to this place of resolution at some point. And so that's the worst thing that could happen. What is the best thing that could happen, right? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to take the chance again, Sonia? And this whole conversation I had to have myself. Are you willing to take the chance? And even if it ends in like pain and sorrow, there might be a beautiful experience along the way, right? That I would completely miss out, that might enrich my life. And so that's kind of what I ended up saying to myself to get to that place where I would start to date again. And then it was just like we clicked on so many levels. I mean, we laughed. We had the same similar weird sense of humor. She's she has a PhD. She's pretty intellectual. We talk about things, and so intellectually we like click, and then our weird sense of humor we click. In terms of raising children around the same age, we click in that regard. So there's just so many different ways that we click, and in fact, one of the friend that introduced us that said we had to meet each other, and I was like, I'm good. She later on was asking, she's like, we were explaining what was going on, and she said, have you ever heard the term twin flame? And I was like, no, I've never heard that. But basically it's like you've met this person that like, and I'm not a person that believes in this concept that there's only one, right? Obviously, right?
Yeah.
But this person that you click so much with, and that you have so much in common, that it's like two sides of one being, and it kind of feels like that a lot. Yes.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was just all of that compatibility, and it sounds like you had a whole lot of self-trust that you could handle whatever came out of it.
Yes, and I was willing to, and I was like, part of living is the pain, right? There's like there's the two sides of it, and I could shut myself out from that. I could have chosen that, and I could live in a surface level where I'm just dating and having fun, but not really committing to anybody. And that could be a fun place to stay, or I could choose to have a deeper relationship that has more risk associated with it. And I guess there is something in me that tends to want to take the risk and go for it. And so I decided to take the risk and see.
Yeah. I think there's a part of all of us that wants that. It's just, do we all have the courage, to do that with anything, to go deeper than the surface, to make the leap from one job to another, to get out of a relationship that isn't working, to give someone new a chance to get on an app. For some people, it's just getting on the app is the leap of faith.
Yes. Yeah. And funny enough, this person I met through a mutual friend, but I had been on an app before. And as an older person going on the app, it's a whole different world of dating, right? But it's kind of fun and different. And I enjoyed the experience as well. I'm 56. And so when I was on the app, I was about 52, 53, I think. And it was good. I met lots of people. I enjoyed myself. I had dating, it had romance, and I had fun. And so, but doing the initial thing, when you get on the app and you set up your profile and you're like, oh, I don't know about this, and but it's also fun getting to know people and taking chances. Obviously needing to stay safe is something that's important. And so that's something to factor in, especially for women. But overall, you meet a lot of people that you're not interested in. And then you meet a few that are interesting, and you just never know. And it's kind of the way to do it now.
It really is. It really is the way to do it now. I'm like, it's kind of like email, people. Like, yes, you can opt out of email if you choose in 2022, but it's a whole lot easier to get things done if you opt into email and figure out how to use email. Right. And I see apps as sort of the same thing where, yeah, you could opt out of apps, but things could be a lot easier and faster if you figure out how. The apps themselves do not deliver to you a relationship. They're just a tool.
It's just another tool, right? And you may meet somebody you would never have met. I met somebody through an app who was a good person in my life for such a number of years. And we dated for a number of years, and now we're just friends. But I would never have had that enriching experience if I had not had an app. So
yeah. And like many of the women who've come on the podcast, over half of them met their person on an app. Yes. In the interviews that I've done. So I'm like, this thing is working, people. We just have to learn how to work it. So the other question I had was, when you got to the part where this relationship is working, we're together, how did you move from that to deciding to make a commitment?
Yeah, so that one, that was just talking. And this is where, like, I tend to be, I have a neurodiverse brain, right? And so I like to focus a lot on logic, right? And I'm very much logic one logical partner goes with an emotional partner, not emotional being a negative way, but somebody that really feels their emotions and emotes. And then I sit in the world of logic, right? And so together we come together and it works out well. For my partner, is something that was important. And so we discussed it and concepts around that. And then I realized that it was something that was important for me as well. And wanting to come together and make a family unit that was good for our children as well. And so all these kind of, we actually had a ceremony when we moved in with each other, all four of us, you know, the two women and the two children, to have a commitment ceremony to actively work together to be with an intention to become a family. You know, we were there with our children, and we had these little stones that represented each one of us, and we kind of put them together and we talked it through. And so we've kind of taken steps along the way to get us to that place of commitment, and just wanting to have a natural expression and of our love and to commit and to be together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. How would you define family? Like just knowing that you see things like just in a different way. How do you, like, if someone said, "Hey, what's a family?" What would you say?
I'd say it's a group of people that love each other and wish to make a committed relationship, you know, and a family unit, in some. So I don't necessarily have this where it has to be biologically we're connected, because yes, one of my children is biological, the other one's adopted, but like they're both equally my children, and I love and adore them. So for me, it's love, adore, being a parent, you know. And my quote unquote stepson, who is also my son, you know, he calls me his second mom. And when he says second mom, he has so much joy in his voice when he says that, you know, that is just a blessing to me. So it's an honor to love and to be loved, and that comes together to make a family.
Yeah, I love that. My parents divorced when I was separated when I was 6, and the divorce took however long after that. And I remember just how much I looked forward to them finding new partners. Like as a kid, like without any, I don't know, it was just something that I really desired, not necessarily for myself. It was just that, and I don't know if it was just the way I was socialized, but I didn't feel bad that my parents were divorced. I mean, we had a whole lot of dysfunction going on, but I didn't feel like I was different or there was something wrong with our family per se. But I just know that like when my dad brought my stepmom to meet us, it didn't turn out to be a good relationship, but just in that my innocence, I was just so excited for him to have someone and for me to have someone, for there to be more someones in our home. And my mom never remarried, but she did date along the way. And I remember every time I was just like, oh my God, there will be another someone, you know. So yeah, I can resonate with your son just taking so much joy in that. And I'm glad it's working out for him. It didn't work out for me. I hope got crushed.
I'm sorry to hear that. But I love how you were such a romantic even at a young age. I mean, you were meant to do this work.
I really was. My family said I was just like a feeler, which is weird because for a whole chunk of my like adulthood, I was like not a feeler, but apparently I used to be a feeler, and then life happened. So we're working on all of that. Thank you so much for telling your story here today. Is there anything you'd like to share, like that you think might just be helpful for the audience, or just a story that I didn't ask you about on your dating journey? Just whatever you want to kind of riff on before we wrap up.
I think it would be like, don't give up hope. Like you'll meet all different types of people, and some people will be interesting and other people will not. But it's more about getting yourself out there and being willing to explore and interact, and being willing to like meet some people you're not interested in, and taking the time to explore and to figure out and to find the person that you may be interested. It's okay if you don't click with somebody, and don't necessarily take it personally, and understand that I think we put a lot in this word rejection, right? And we make it mean something about ourselves, as opposed to that's just not the one. And like if I had stopped with the one that broke my heart, right, then I would never have gotten to the true love. I learned so much from that relationship that did not last very long. that helped inform the relationship that is such a wonderful relationship and a blessing in my life. So everything and every relationship you're in for whatever length of time blesses you in some way or gives you some additional information. So nothing is wasted. So enjoy the process and live your life.
Awesome. I love it. I really, especially the part about not taking it personally. Like just because you meet someone who we didn't work out with, or you just hated that first date, doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Doesn't mean anything about you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for telling us your story and coming and sharing. Please tell listeners where they can find you if anyone is interested in working. Oh my God, how did we not talk about your work?
How did we not talk about sex?
Let's talk about sex. Okay, we're gonna do a few more minutes. Sorry, scratch all of the wrap up. How did you come to that work? I'm just gonna start there.
Yeah. So in one of my long-term relationships, I ended up being in a sexless marriage for a number of years, and with a lot of pain and feeling that there's something wrong with me, and all blaming myself. And then I ended up going and working with a sexual counselor, a sexual therapist, and the relationship didn't last. But I basically realized that I was a life coach by this point and wanting to incorporate that work. I was like, if I have been dealing with this, then other women have been dealing with this as well. And I'm a person that's willing to talk about these things. So I went and got additional training as a sexual counselor, and then brought the medical doctor, sexual counseling, master coach, certified, life coach. And I actually worked in a sex toy store and kind of brought them all together and became the midlife sex coach for women, and to help women with that part, because I want relationships to last. And if I can help in whatever way, then I'm more than happy to help. So that's how I ended up doing that work. And I love talking about sex, and I love helping in whatever way, and to help create a sexual intimacy that can last for the rest of your life, right? Midlife is such a unique time in our lives, and we get to define who we are as midlife women. And we also get to, if we've not had the opportunity in the past, or if our sexual intimacy has changed in some way, we get to do the work and explore and find the pleasure and give ourselves permission for the pleasure. And then, make that part of our life from now until the day we pop off and enjoy ourselves.
Yeah. Are there a typical set of issues that women in midlife have in terms of, is it like typically biology, or is it typically miseducation, or typically like being with the wrong partner? What are the most common
things? It could
things?
be all of those things.
I know.
Yes, and yes, right? So we're really socialized that it's about, if we were in a heterosexual relationship, and I want to be clear that all relationships are, equally important, but the way our society focuses on a heterosexual relationship where women are sexual objects and we have to look pretty and sexy and all that stuff. But it doesn't really talk about ownership of our sexuality and how we get to express our sexuality or understand it and own it as part of us. It's all about making somebody else's pleasure a priority and doing something for somebody else, right? But then we get to a certain point in our life where we're like, this kind of sucks, and I don't want to be doing duty sex. I want something more than that. And so the exploration is deeper, right? Where we start focusing on ourselves and our pleasure and what it is that we want. And then society says ridiculous things like penetrative sex is the way, but 85% of women need stimulation to their clitoris, and this is not really being discussed. And so we're not finding the pleasure, and there's actually a pleasure gap that's along gender lines when we're looking at heterosexual sexual encounters. When women are having sex with women, both women are having pleasure in the high 90 percentile. Men having sex with men, both are having pleasure in the 90th percentile. Women having sex with men are having pleasure in like 80th, 90th percentile. Women are down in the 60 something percentile. Now there's a problem here when we have a pleasure gap where we are not getting the pleasure that we deserve. And so part of my work is also making sure that women have that pleasure and focusing on libido issues. There's a lot that's going on in a woman's life, and her hormones are shifting and her life stressors are there as well. And once again, we are blaming ourselves and saying that we're broken and something's wrong with us. And I like to normalize what's going on and to work to make it a better environment for women, and to help women to give themselves that permission so they can enjoy themselves.
That's amazing. That's amazing. My dad was a very interesting human. But one of the things he did do for me that was a gift was, I think I was about 16 and he handed me this book. It was a really old book, probably written like in the 70s or 60s, and it was called Every Woman Can.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
I know.
I love your dad.
He was interesting. He did get that part right. He just had it. I don't know if he found the book. He just handed me the book and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so I think that planted in me the knowledge that, well, like, orgasms are available.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I, in all of my relationships, ended up like figuring out, okay, here's how we get to this because this is available and we're not done until that happens.
Right.
And I wonder just how many women didn't have that knowledge just early on that, oh yeah, and you get to have this too.
Yeah, it's not even like they didn't have they actively were taught that they should not, right? It's not even a neutral place or just nobody saying anything. They're actively taught that good girls don't. Good girls should not enjoy sex. This is about sex for somebody else, right? And pleasure for somebody else. So we have a lot of antiquated ideas that we need to like pluck out of our brain like weeds and replant them with these fresh concepts that yes, we can, we do, we will, we should, we're allowed to, like that type. We get to experience pleasure and we get to give ourselves permission. And then focusing on libido issues and recognizing that things may have shifted and we may have to come at it from a different angle, or we may have to have conversations. And may I say not or, but and we will have to have conversations with our partner that continue so that we continue to have this pleasure. And it's not a one and done type of conversation, but it is about empowerment and pleasure empowerment. I definitely love that idea, and recognizing that we get to do this work, and it's for you, it's for your partner, and as you're going through midlife with our hormones shifting, we may have to work at this a little bit more. We also do need to make sure we're checking in with our gynecologist, because as we go through menopause, there's genital urinary syndrome of menopause, which is GSM, where shift things like our we may not be lubricated the way we were. We may have an increase in urinary tract infections. We'll have atrophy to this area. We need to look into like having hormones, creams and pills and things like that added on. So there's a number of different things that need to be discussed with our gynecologist and continue to work on.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Like, that's just, it's like, hey, we get to have all of this research and all of this information and really all of this attention on us.
Yes.
And our pleasure.
It's our time. 100%. It's our time. And you can end up with the best sex life of your life. Postmenopausal sex life has been incredible. And may I just say that when I was menopausal, it tanked and died to 0. So if you're in that place where you're like, I couldn't give a fuck, I'm not interested ever again, it can come back. So let me just say that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I loved what you said about just having that ongoing conversation with your partner, which again, being given tools to have the conversation, that's just like even just the first line. And then just the vulnerability, the safety to have the conversation, to invite your partner to explore with you, to be willing to be courageous and explore yourself. Like it's a whole big thing and so important.
Definitely.
Thank you for doing this work. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to share all of that with us as well. So everyone, I just really want to encourage you. I mean, like you've heard Dr. Sonia is like, basically it sounds like any question we have on sex, you have something to say about it. So I just want to encourage everyone to connect with Dr. Sonia online, follow her, get on her email list and check out her program. So please tell us where they can find you, where they can connect with you on social media, and what your website is.
Yeah, the best thing to do is my website, soniawrightmd.com. That's the best place to find everything and to get onto my email list. And I have a course called Own Your Sexuality Now, and I run it once a year in January. So enrollment is going to be happening in November. And so definitely check that out as well. I would love to have you. We have a great time in there, and women have changed their lives, not just the sexual intimacy in their life, but just overall the relationships. And quite a few people that have been in a sexless relationship have been able to reintroduce the intimacy in their lives as well. And women, and this is not just for people in relationship, this is for single women as well that want to engage and to explore their own sexuality and sexual expression. So please join us.
So important. It's, here's one of the tips for not falling for the wrong guy is don't go to a date feeling horny. Like
take care of that shit before you go out, right? So you can think with your mind instead of your clitoris.
Right. If you feel good, then he can't bait you with that stuff. Just gonna throw that out there. Thank you, Dr. Sonia. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time. I will link up all of your information in the show notes. And listeners, I want to just thank you for spending this time with Dr. Sonia and I. We appreciate your time and attention, and I will see you next time.